I swear there's a good game in here somewhere, but I'd be lying if I said the game developers didn't make it nearly impossible to find it. Souldiers is just riddled with what seems like endless loading screens, and I can't figure out for the life of me why. The game isn't overly complex, it's a 2D Metroidvania, and I've played plenty of Metroidvanias, many that were far larger than this game, and every single one of them loads in a fraction of the time that Souldiers does. But I recently had 2 4-hour flights, so I sat through all these loading screens to give Souldiers a full chance. And if you ever get past the insane loading times, this game is actually pretty fun. So today, let's break down Souldiers and if the pros outweigh the cons. Souldiers has a pretty cool story concept that makes the seemingly dumb title of the game make some sense. You are one of several soldiers who are trapped in a cave after a natural disaster where you will surely die, but you are visited by a spirit who lets you leave the cave as a soul and traverse the world between living and dying. As you travel, you are trying to find a way to make it back to the living world and to your homeland. So you're literally a soldier. I like the concept of the story, but making the title itself a pun for an otherwise fairly serious story, it's an odd choice. I think they probably just wanted to put the word soul in the title to pull in the Dark Souls fans, which, bravo, it worked on me. The game has a ton of cutscenes to expand upon the story as the game progresses, and often this accompanied with the art style. It reminded me more of the JRPGs from the Super Nintendo era. And let's pause for just a second and take a look at our countdown here. It took over 1 minute and 20 seconds to load the game from one scene to the next. Holy cow. Anyway, let's continue on with the review. As you start the game, you get to choose who you want to play as by selecting one of the 3 starter classes, the Scout, the Archer, or the Caster. I personally went with the Scout, but each class will make the game play pretty different depending on who you choose. The combat as you fight your way through the worlds is very fulfilling and smooth, and you can continue to learn more and more of your moves as you level up through a skill tree. But leveling isn't as simple as just defeating monsters and getting experience points. You also can upgrade your character by finding new items, weapons, store purchases, diamonds, and much more. The game gives you several different ways to make yourself more powerful, and to be successful, you're going to need to search the world to find all of these upgrades, or at least a significant number of them. The world you search through are quite varied and have a fun selection of enemies to challenge and entertain you. You'll naturally die a lot in the game as you figure out all the enemies' attacks and hiding places, but that's how these type of games are designed to be. And while the regular enemies seem to be fairly balanced when it comes to this, the boss battles are an entirely different story. The boss battles are insanely difficult and require you to get extremely proficient in order to defeat them. The first core boss, the Spider Woman, who's obviously harkens back to Dark Souls, took me a solid 2 hours to finally defeat. And I'm not complaining that the game is too hard, it's just a crazy difficult spike compared to the worlds that you are working through. This will turn most players off early in the game unless they lower the difficulty level, which will lock you out of things later on. The bosses, even though they are harder than what the game prepares you for, they are solid fights for players who want a fully skill-focused experience. The game isn't just focused on exploration and combat though. There are several puzzles throughout the levels that will require you to examine the area and use your materials in your head to figure out what you need to do to advance. Generally, these style of games only have inaccessible areas due to not having a particular item or upgrade yet. However, this game has several instances that are focused on puzzles to figure out in order to find a new area. While the game is 2D, the type of puzzles like moving rocks from place to place or different platforms reminded me a bit of early Zelda game puzzles. Now let's jump back for a second and talk about the most frustrating flaw the game has, the loading screens. The game, as I stated, is designed to make you die a lot, and every time you die you have to wait for the game to load. Take the boss fight for example. They are very hard and you will usually die very quickly. Then you have to wait 30 seconds to a minute for the game to load so you can try again. You fight for another 30 seconds and you die. Then you wait for another 30 seconds to a minute to try again. You mess up and you die in like 10 seconds next time. Well, prepare to wait for nearly a minute for the next try. In the boss fight, you will spend the vast majority of your time not fighting and learning the boss, but rather just waiting for the game to load. You are loading constantly in this game, and every loading screen is 30 seconds minimum and sometimes over a minute. The most ironic part of the loading in the game is something called fast travel, where you can warp between save checkpoints, but as soon as you warp, prepare to wait about a full minute for it to get there. In many cases, it'd been faster if you just walked to the area in the game that you wanted to go to rather than fast travel. I don't know what the deal is and why the game takes so long to load, but patches have already been dropped on the game since the release, and it still hasn't been fixed as of yet. Overall, Souldiers is a pretty unique game in the fact that it blends a Metroidvania in with the Souls-like difficulty, rewarding combat, a fun story, and some elements of the SNES RPGs. It does have some issues with the difficulty spikes, but if you buy this game because of the clear marketing to the Dark Souls franchise, this isn't going to be a major issue. The loading screens would absolutely need to be fixed for the vast majority of players to even want to play the game. If you're willing to wait for them, there's a fairly rewarding experience on the other side. But if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, check out my other review and gameplay videos, and by all means, go out there, find a great game to play, and just simply have a great rest of the day.